After the gunfight in the toxic settlement of Rampart, the quiet of space comforts Lucius Tarquin as he applies metapatches to his wounds. The steady thrum of the Folly's engines alleviates some of the tension in his shoulders. Glancing at the combat bot, softly whirring behind his seat, Lucius says, "I was a little too close, old friend." Brutus emits a series of tones in response. I know, that planet didn't treat either of us well. But we'll have to go back once we've delivered this message to Lodestar." He pulls up the navigational data his aunt provided. That is, if we can find it. A proximity alarm sounds and the viewport is filled with a massive dreadnought emerging from E-Drive. It moves into position above the Hadrian's Folly, and a comm notice chimes on the board in front of Lucius. Accepting the comm, he hears a commanding voice say, "Herald, surrender the data immediately." Lucius mutters, "Aunt Aurelia, what have you gotten me into?" He scans the dreadnought, recognizing the clan markings belonging to Clan Eidolon, the most warlike of the founder clans. He exhales and frowns, thinking to himself, "I wonder if Ironhawks fear the guild at all. I guess I'm about to find out." "Come on, Lucius, you can do this." And he opens the comms, saying, "Esteemed Captain, I am on a bonded herald delivery. Interfere with it and risk the guild's wrath. I imagine your clan would dislike having to make all their deliveries themselves. Takes a few too many ships out of rotation. Don't you think?" Welcome back for episode 3 of Errant Adventures. As always, I'm your game master and solo player, Steve Morrison. This week, I continue the adventures of Lucius Tarquin using Ironsworn Starforged, a sci-fi version of the Ironsworn role-playing game designed by Sean Tomkin. You can learn more about it at ironswornrpg.com. Now let's get right back to the action, so please enjoy episode 3, Expedition Underway. We already have set up our initial conflict here, as Lucius has opened up these comm frequencies and is trying to essentially persuade this dreadnought to let him go about his business. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. We're going to make our first move of this session by trying to compel the captain of the ship to let us go on our way. So when we compel, we try to persuade someone or make them an offer. So am I trying to charm, pacify, encourage, or barter, threaten or incite, lie or swindle? I definitely think the way that I set this up is a little bit of a threat. He's basically saying, if you don't let me go about my bonded mission, then I'm going to try and get you blacklisted. Now, whether or not he actually has the ability to do that doesn't really matter for this so much as he is trying to make this captain think that he does. So we're going to go ahead and roll plus iron, which is not my greatest stat, but that's all right. That's part of the fun of playing games. So my iron is +1, and I'm going to roll and see what happens. First roll of the game always sets the tone. Not a great tone. So I got a 2 on the action die. I've got a 3 and a 9 on the challenge dice, and that's a miss. On a miss, they refuse or make a demand which costs you greatly. All right, so I think the demand that they make is essentially turn over the data now, or we will destroy your ship. Like, they're not going for it at all. And Lucius kind of sits back in his pilot's chair and just goes, well, I guess that could have turned out better. Brutus, well, I guess you don't really have to strap yourself in, but Okay, I can do this. The E-Drive is almost charged. I just have to evade them for a little bit. And he is going to attempt to fly away. So I think to do that, he is going to have to face a little bit of danger. So we're attempting something risky and reacting to this imminent threat. So I think there's an argument to be made for it being edge, speed, mobility, or agility. It's his kind of ability to maneuver the ship. I think expertise, focus, or observation could also go into play here because of his ability to command the ship and manipulate the controls and, get the right amount of power out of each thing that he needs to. And I think deception, stealth, or trickery, I don't know that he's necessarily at this point trying to do any of those things. He's more just trying to get away. So I am going to lean towards expertise, focus, or observation to roll plus wits. It is my highest. I'm kind of leaning into that a little bit because I want to try and get away and get on an expedition this session. So let's roll plus wits. I've got a +3 in wits, and let's find out what happens when we face some danger. Okay, so I've got a 3 plus 3 is a 6 on the action die. I got a 5 and a 3 on my challenge dice. So we go from a miss to a strong hit, which is fantastic. So on a strong hit, you are successful. Take +1 momentum. So I started the session with 3 momentum left over from last session. So I'm going to go ahead and take that up to 4. And I think what this looks like is Lucius engages the accelerator and the ship leaps forward and he ducks it down underneath this massive dreadnought. And as the dreadnought is trying to adjust and they actually, I think, start firing, he is able to maneuver the ship around and evade and actually takes it around the planet. And because he's a small ship compared to this massive dreadnought, he's able to move a lot faster and maneuver a lot easier. And so he is able to escape to the other side and gets away. And I think at that point, once he gets to the other side of the planet, his E-Drive has fully charged, and it is time to go ahead and undertake an expedition. So I'm actually going to mark progress on my quest, take a message to Nashana Aerith, clan leader of Lodestar, because I think the fight on the planet was a result of failing on the Swear an Iron Vow move, but this facing off against this dreadnought and these Ironhawks from clan Eidolon is the first obstacle in reaching Lodestar that I think is going to actually tie into this mission. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 1 box. It's a formidable vow. And let's go ahead and take a look at the undertake an expedition. When you trailblaze a route through perilous space, journey over unexplored terrain, or survey a mysterious site, give the expedition a name and rank. Then, for each segment of the expedition, envision your approach. If you move at speed, roll plus edge. Keep under the radar, roll plus shadow. Stay vigilant, roll plus wits. I think I'm going to definitely move at speed because I'm trying to, I think, get ahead of whatever this dreadnought is. We're going to give this expedition a name. It's going to be Expedition to Lodestar. Pretty simple. I think that this expedition itself, I'm tempted to make it dangerous, just so that not everything I'm doing is formidable. But I don't know. Let's take a look at our sector. So looking at the map, I have Lodestar fairly distant from Rampart. So I do think it makes sense for this to be a formidable expedition. Why not, right? Let's just go all in. We're gonna put Lucius through his paces here. So we are moving at speed. So we're gonna roll plus edge. My edge is 2. And I am a navigator, but that does not give me anything at this point because I don't have that particular section of the asset unlocked that gives you a bonus to undertaking an expedition. So that doesn't help me at all. Rolling plus edge, plus 2, here we go. Rolled 3 on the action die, rolled a 7 and a 9 on the challenge dice, which gives me a miss. You are waylaid by a crisis or arrive at a waypoint to confront a dire threat. Do not mark progress and pay the price. Okay, let's figure out what this crisis is, or possibly the dire threat. So I'm going to go over to my oracles, and I'm going to roll on the descriptor, see what that gets me. So 21 is contested. Okay. How about the focus? Be 13, boundary. Contested boundary. So he comes out of E-Drive, out of the drifts, into the anchorage, and there are these fighters from this planet close to here that are in the middle of this pitched battle with, let's say, some raiders or something like that are trying to get resources from this planet. And essentially he drops out of E-Drive, and immediately his system registers several sort of targeting solutions aimed on his ship. And Lucius is just like, uh-oh, and is going to try and get out of there. Now he needs time for his E-Drive to recharge, so he's going to beeline it for a moon close to this planet. And I think, again, in order to maneuver away, he's going to have to face danger. So we're going to do, I think this time it makes sense for it to be speed, because it literally, in this case, is unexpected for him. So he is coming out of the drift and is immediately thrust into this fight. And so he is going to try and maneuver as adeptly as he can. So we're going to roll plus edge, plus 2. All right, so I got a 6 on the action die. I've got a 1 and an 8 on the challenge dice. So we got a weak hit. So succeed, but a troublesome cost. Must make a suffer move. I think it makes sense for the suffer move to be the ship takes a little bit of damage. So it's going to shudder a little bit as he manages to fly it down and around towards this moon, and is going to tick down 1 piece of integrity. So there's withstand damage. When your vehicle faces a damaging situation or environment, suffer -1 integrity for minor damage. Then if your integrity is 0 or you choose to resist the damage, roll plus integrity. I'm going to try and resist. Why not? Let's see what happens. So we're going to roll plus integrity, which is 4 right now because I took 1 damage, and hope for a good roll. Not a good roll. So I got a weak hit. So I got a 5 on the action die. I got a 2 and a 9 on the challenge dice. So vehicle is not battered. You may lose momentum in exchange for +1 integrity. Otherwise, press on. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to lose 1 momentum. I'm going to go back to 3, and I'm going to regain that integrity. So he takes a couple hits, manages to reroute the shield so that it doesn't actually damage the hull, and then gets behind this moon and out of the sight of this battle. I think at that point he is going to find a place to hide, and then once the E-Drive is charged, he is going to go ahead and undertake the next segment of this expedition. So I think he is going to try this time to stay a little bit more vigilant. He's a little shook from dropping out of E-Drive right into the middle of a battle, so he's trying to plot it a little bit smarter, and so we're going to roll plus wits on this one. So +3, here we go. All right, I got an 8 on the action die. I've got a 1 and a 4 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So I reach a waypoint, envision it, and mark progress per the rank of your expedition. So I chose a formidable expedition, so we're going to mark 1 box of progress. And let us envision this waypoint. So let's go ahead and roll on some oracles for it. So I'm going to roll on the space sighting oracle. So we're in the Outlands, and I rolled a 76. So it's a precursor site in deep space. That's cool. So what do we think this precursor site in deep space is? Let's go ahead and roll on the descriptor again. See if we can figure something out. So 77 on the descriptor is protected, and focus. Let's take a look at that. 28. Environment. Okay. So Lucius in the Hadrian's Folly drops out of E Drive, and his scanners pick up something, and he kind of flinches a little bit and then realizes that no, in fact, they are not enemy ships trying to shoot him again. And he takes a deep breath and then sort of squints a little bit as he's looking at the scanner, and he sees that there is a station just floating out here in deep space. And it looks like there is a small planet. And when I say a small planet, I mean an abnormally small planet. And it looks as though it's actually confined within the heart of this space station, almost as if it has been artificially minimized. Like it's very, very tiny planet, like as he's reading it. It's a massive space station, but the planet itself is like the size of a small like asteroid or moon. But when he scans the planet, he gets full life form readings and is looking at it. And I think there's a strong temptation as somebody who is an archivist and is interested in the ascendancy, that he wants to go explore and investigate this thing. And I think he's kind of like looking at the navigational data that he's got, and he's like, can I find my way back here? Can I mark this spot somehow so that I can make my way back? Or should I go take a look now? And I think I'm going to roll a d6. And I think a 1 to 3 he explores now, and 4 to 6 he marks it and moves on. All right, I rolled a 2. So he's going to explore it now. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Explore Waypoint move. When you divert from an expedition to scout a notable location, roll plus wits. All right, that's easy enough. Plus 3 on this roll. Okay. I've got a 5 on the action die. I've got a 1 and an 8 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So on a weak hit, you uncover something interesting, but is bound up in a complication or reveals an ominous new aspect of this place. Envision what you encounter, ask the Oracle if unsure, and take +1 momentum. So I'm going to take the +1 right now, so I don't forget about that. And I think what it is he gets a little bit closer to the station, and when he does, he realizes that there is an energy shield emitting from the station, which is impenetrable. And unless he could find a way to get through that, and maybe it's similar to the shield that his aunt uses from those ascendancy pillars back on Rampart. And he's like, I wonder if it is the same thing. And he's like scanning the frequencies, and it's just infinitely more complicated than that small pillar field that he encountered. And so I think he is going to, unfortunately, have to pass it up for now. So he's going to make a note about this space station, and he's like, I really would love to come back here, but I guess I should be back on my way. And so he is going to go ahead and head off for his next leg of the journey. So we're going to continue with vigilance. So we're going to roll plus wits again. And I've got a 6 on the action die. I got a 4 and a 7 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So we reach the waypoint and mark progress, but I have to choose something. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my progress here. I'm at 2 progress now on this expedition. I either have to suffer costs en route, make a suffer move or 2 suffer moves, or face a complication at the waypoint. Envision what you encounter. Let's go ahead and say that I'm at 3 supply, I'm at 3 spirit, I'm at 4 health. So I don't know that I necessarily want to start dipping into those right now, because this might be a fairly long expedition. So why don't we say we're going to run into something else at this waypoint? So let's go ahead and go back and roll on our descriptor and focus again, because I think that's been working pretty well, and see what we discover. So 75 preserved and 40 hideaway. Okay, interesting. So he comes out of E Drive in this system and is very, very close to this asteroid field. And looking at the asteroid field, he can see that there are comm signals coming from it. And as he is kind of trying to maneuver and like he sets the ship on a circuitous route to stay away from the asteroids while the E-drive recharges, he picks up a couple of ship engine signals coming from the asteroid field. And I think he sees a couple of small fighters approaching from the asteroid field. And seeing these fighters, he recognizes the makeup of them as belonging to the same group of raiders that were attacking that system that he dropped into a couple waypoints ago. And he's just like, oh, man, it just does not get any better out here. And starts to fire up the engine. And I think at this point, he knows it's going to take a little while for the E-drive to recharge. And he is going to move into the asteroid belt as these ships are approaching, and is going to try and lose them in there. So once again, I think this is going to be a face danger, and I think it's going to be speed, mobility, and agility again. So we're going to roll plus edge. All right, so I got a 7 on my action die. I got a 10 and a 6 on the challenge dice. So we got a weak hit. So I succeed, but at a troublesome cost. So I think with that troublesome cost is actually in this case going to be a little bit of spirit. So as he's maneuvering his way through the asteroid belts, it's very, very stressful in here. He's on high alert. He's wending his way here and there around asteroids. And the ships follow him for a little bit, and he's able to eventually lose them, but not without kind of developing a little bit of a headache. Once he has gotten away from them, he takes the ship back out of the asteroid field and is going to engage his E-drive as those ships are starting to race back towards him, having picked up his signal again now that he's outside the field. But before they can even get close, he jumps out of the system. And let's go ahead and do a little bit of vigilance again. Roll plus wits. Okay, I've got a 4 on the action die. I've got a 2 and a 3 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So we can reach a waypoint, and we can mark progress. Good, we're at 3 progress. So we're moving along. And we reach another waypoint. Let's go ahead and envision it. And I want to do another location, space sighting. And we're still in the Outlands. All right, 60. A planet. What sort of planet do we see? So we drop out in orbit of a planet, and it is another desert world. Is there anything interesting about this desert world? So let's roll on the observed from space, see if we find anything interesting. 78. Vibrant terrain colors. Okay, so we jump out, and we're around this desert world, and it seems to be almost iridescent in the way that the sands shimmer. Lucius looks down at it and is like, oh, that's quite lovely. Unfortunately, I don't think I have time to stay and admire the local flora, so I'm just going to make my way. And engages another vigilance roll. All right, so we've got 4 on the action die, a 1 and a 10 on the challenge dice for another weak hit. All right, so I need to either suffer costs en route or face a complication. First of all, I'm going to mark that sweet, sweet progress. We're up to 4 boxes. Let's go ahead and have another look at our space sighting. The 86 is going to be a starship. Okay, that works. What kind of starship? And if I roll a dreadnought, I think we know what starship it is. It's going to be that starship that ambushed us on the way out of Rampart. 47. All right, so it's an outbounder. So it's some sort of survey or research ship. Why don't we take a roll on the initial contact, and we'll see if the complication is because they are in some way in trouble or because they are in some way hostile. So we got a 17, which is neutral or automated. So I'm going to go with neutral because I think actually the ship itself is having issues. And that's where the complication arises. So I actually want to go and see what sort of stellar object is around, because I think it might have something to do with the star. So I'm going to roll on that table. I got a 70, which is a white dwarf shining with spectral light. So I think the complication is they are too close. So maybe they were investigating this white dwarf, and there's something about the sort of spectral light shining from it that interfered with their systems. And so they're broadcasting a distress call. Lucius takes a look at it, and I think I'm going to gather some information because I want to see what I know about sort of white dwarf spectral with spectral light. And because I'm an archivist, I'm the bearer of a digital archive of specialized knowledge. When you secure an advantage or gather information using lore recalled from your studies, add +1. So I think he probably had at some point studied stellar objects, especially because I'm envisioning the Tarquin clan as being very into shipbuilding, which is why his aunt is out here in the Outlands building ships. And so obviously if you're building ships, you want to know what the different astral issues are that you might need to deal with. So let's go ahead and roll gather information. I'm going to add +1. So we're going to roll this plus wits. So we are looking at a +4 on this. Okay, well, I'm glad I am an archivist because I rolled a 5 on the action die, and I rolled 2 4s on the challenge dice. So it's a strong hit, and I have an opportunity here. So I also want to take a look at the archivist asset. On a hit, envision the obscure but helpful knowledge you put to use, and take +1 momentum. My momentum goes up to 5, and I think what I discover, looking at the strong hit on gather information, it's something helpful and specific. The path you must follow or action you must take to make progress is made clear. Envision what you learn and take +2 momentum. Oh, good. Well, I get 2 more momentum. That's happy. So I'm up to 7 momentum, and I think there is I keep going back to frequencies, but I think what the obscure piece of knowledge that he gathers, and maybe it's because of this research into the ascendancy, but there's a specific frequency that this particular type of white dwarf emits, like a specific radiation. And if you modulate your shields in a certain way, it'll reflect it and won't mess with the ship systems. So he is going to try and contact them and is going to basically offer this information to them. And I think they are somewhat hesitant because, they don't know exactly who he is, and he is essentially asking them to change their shield frequency to something that he knows, and like maybe they would be at danger for him attacking them at that point. And so I think he's going to need to persuade them into doing this. So we're going to roll plus heart. We're going to compel, and my heart is +2. Okay, I rolled a 3 on the action die, and I rolled a 6 and a 10 on the challenge dice. So they refuse or make a demand which costs greatly. So I think they refuse. And I think their demand is essentially, if you want to help us, you're going to have to come get us. And Lucius is now caught between the idea of getting close enough to this white dwarf to possibly get his own ship in trouble and leaving these poor researchers to die. And I think he is not yet cold and inured enough to the harsh realities of the Forge, or at least this part of the Forge, to just leave these people to die. So we're going to go ahead and try to get in there and get close enough to drag them out with some sort of like grappler cable, or get close enough that we can do the classic Star Trek BS and extend the shields around their ship, something like that. So I think this is going to be a face danger, and I think it's going to be with expertise in this case. I feel like that's a pretty fair option because he's using his knowledge of his ship and this obscure knowledge that he got from his studies. And we're going to see what happens. So we're going to roll plus wits, and here we go. Okay, so I got a 7 on the action die. I got a 5 and an 8 on the challenge dice. So it's a weak hit. You succeed, but at a troublesome cost. Again, I'm going to go ahead and take a hit to the ship's integrity. And this time I'm not going to resist it because I think it makes sense that he, in the course of getting in close to this research vessel, is going to be able to sort of connect with them in such a way to transfer some of his ship's protective power. Maybe he does expand the shields. Maybe he just connects to them and basically puts himself in a dangerous position so that they feel comfortable going ahead and changing their frequency. But in so doing, some of that radiation does leak through as he is sort of like trying to angle his way around this ship. Actually, let's just go ahead and say that he connects to the ship with some sort of like tow cables. And in so doing, there's a little bit of strain on the structural integrity of the Hadrian's Folly. And so it is weakened just a little bit as he pulls this research vessel away. I think they say thank you, and they are ready to be on their way. And so is Lucius. So let's go ahead and make another attempt to jump out into the deeper space of the Outlands. And we're going to continue to... Actually, I think we're going to change it up and go to speed again. Because I think at this point, Lucius feels like maybe he's lost a little bit of time with this little bit of a side excursion. And so we're going to go ahead and try to pick up some of that time that we lost. We're going to roll plus edge. So this is plus 2. And I've got a 5 on the action die, and I've got a 5 and a 7 on the challenge dice, which is going to be a complete miss. So you're waylaid by a crisis, arrive at a waypoint to confront a dire threat, do not mark progress, and pay the price. Go back to our oracles here, and I want to do another look at what the space sighting is as we drop out. 99. Roll twice. Oh boy. So 84 is going to be a starship again. And 60, a planet. Okay. So let's go ahead and roll on the planet again. So that's 91 is a tainted world. Okay. And I've got an idea. I want to roll on the starship oracles just to see what comes up. 93. Ships in conflict. Perfect. So we've got 13, which is a cruiser, and it is in conflict with 19, an escape pod. Okay, perfect. Lucius drops out of E-Drive as, he's trying to make up a little bit of time, so he cut his calculations a little tight, and he comes out around this tainted world. And let's roll on a first look for the tainted world. 13, fungal forests. So these massive fungal forests of spore-laden mushrooms, essentially massive mushrooms growing up underneath that are constantly releasing all of these spores up into the air. And so there's almost this greenish hue to the atmosphere as he comes out above it. And as he comes out of E-Drive, he immediately sees a cruiser flying on its way towards the planet, and he detects an escape pod that is following it. And he is going to kind of look, scan the area around a little bit, and detects a little bit of debris from a larger ship in the path where the cruiser and the escape pod are coming from. And looking at the scanners, he sees that the cruiser is another Eidolon Ironhawk ship. And the escape pod is basically, it has gone dark. So it's not transmitting anything until he comes out of E-Drive there, and he gets a tight beam communication. And when he gets this communication, now let's see who's on board this escape pod. So let's roll on our character roll chart. 18. A cultist. That's good. Okay. And 34. Forge an alliance. So a cultist who is trying to forge an alliance. So I want to tie this into sort of the idea that I have for Lodestar being a clan of outcasts. And I think this tight beam communication comes up on Lucius' comm board, and he answers it real quickly. And let's see. I want to look at my truths real quick and look at the religion again. So, our gods failed us. We left them behind. The Exodus was a tipping point. The gods offered no help to the billions who died in the cataclysm, and spirituality has little meaning in the Forge. Most now see religion as a useless relic of our past, but the search for meaning continues, and many are all too willing to follow a charismatic leader who claims to offer a better way. I'm going to also tie this around over into magic, because the magic that I rolled for the truths was supernatural powers are wielded by those rare people we call paragons. While not magic in the truest sense, the abilities among the paragons are as close to magic as we can conjure. These powers are born of ancient knowledge held by secretive orders, which I think ties, pretty neatly into that cultist idea. So Lucius gets a comm from this escape pod, and it is a woman's voice, and she says, "Please help me. They're going to kill me. I have to get away from here. I don't know who you are or what your purpose is here, but please help me." And then, the cruiser kind of fires a couple shots off. Lucius takes in a deep breath and is going to attempt to swoop in and pick up this escape pod before the cruiser can get too close. So we're going to do that with some speed, mobility, and agility while facing some danger. And let's hope we roll all right. Okay, we did not roll all right. So I rolled a 6 on the action die, rolled a 7 and a 9 on the challenge dice. So we've got a miss. So I fail, or a momentary success is undermined by a dire turn of events. I know exactly what it is. The Hadrian's Folly swoops in and opens up its cargo bay, and he scoops up the escape pod in a rather daring show of piloting finesse. And he is taking the ship up and out away from the planet to try and create some distance between this cruiser, because his ship is being a little bit smaller, is a little bit faster. And as he is kind of burning the engines hot, one of the shots from the cruisers hits and causes the engines to short out. I want to say they were actually close enough to the planet's surface that he had to come down into the atmosphere just a little bit in order to scoop this escape pod up. And so he hadn't quite broken out of the gravitational pull of the planet when his engines go on the fritz. And Hadrian's Folly begins to fall and is plummeting in a free fall towards this tainted, toxic world. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends, family, pets, really anybody about it. And head over to iTunes to leave a review so more people can find me. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can find it at Errant Solo Pod. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.